So good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see quite a few people here in the Rocket venue, and some of them are joining us online. So welcome everyone who are here at the Rocket venue and those who are joining us online. Today we have met for this event, and before that I would like to introduce the organizers of this event. Of course, some of you would know BMI from before, and some of you even graduated that institute. But those who are not aware, let me shortly introduce what BMI stands for. So BMI Executive Institute was established more than 20 years ago by 4 founding schools, which is HEC Paris in France, UC Louvain in Belgium, Vytautas Magnus University here in Lithuania, and NHH University in Norway. As well, we have a lot of partner schools all around the world, and we keep striving for high quality of education for management. We are very proud to have a truly global faculty. All the professors are coming from different countries, 100% international. So we cherry pick them in order to provide the high in-class knowledge for the participants of all of our programs. What exactly do? We provide 3 different kind of programs. First of all is Executive EMBA, 12 months duration of helicopter view in the management all areas. As well, we have short-term executive programs for those who would like to dedicate just a couple of months in order to gain the knowledge of the specific area of management field. As well, the in-company training. This is the tailor-made programs for the company for the internal need to educate their own employees. Just shortly about each of them. Executive MBA. Right now we have 2 locations where we provide that programs. That's Brussels and Vilnius. Our EMBA is very highly ranked in the world, so we take seat of number 16. And for the curriculum and career advancement is number 3. As well, for global exposure, it's number 8. Let's take a look on the target audience who is taking part in that executive MBA. 90% of participants are top management or senior management level. 32% are board members. All of them have more than 10 years of experience in the management area. Talking about the executive education, about the short-term programs, we have a huge variety of them. In the January 2022, we will update what programs we'll have the next year. So stay tuned, but just a little bit in the nutshell, we'll have definitely innovation and digital transformation program. Statistics show that even 70% of digital transformation do not achieve the targets. So we're striving to create the program which helps to be among those 30% of successful cases. As well, we'll be speaking about the female leadership, about the corporate strategy. We'll organize a trip to the innovation hub, such as Silicon Valley or Israel, and many other topics we will cover next year. In company trainings, as mentioned before, it's a tailor-made program for the company internal use. As well, tonight, I would like, with very huge excitement, to introduce the new program of which we have created. It's Investment and Innovation Academy. We did that together with our partners, Baltic Sandbox and Investment Business Angel Network. So together with them, we have realized that innovation and investment ecosystem is not full. There are so many parties working individually. So we decided to create the academy, which unite them and provide synergies in order to boost the competitive advantage, in order to find new opportunities and strive for the better. So speaking about that academy, that's the academy for the investors and corporate investment decision makers. This is a totally tools-oriented and practice-based oriented program for those who do not have a lot of time but would like to get the best knowledge, the practice-based knowledge, which would be applied to the internal use. The profile of the participant, of course, investors who would like to get even better return on investment and get the tools how to invest even more successfully. As well, the corporate decision makers, consultants, the lawyers who would like to understand the industry even more and use that benefit to create new opportunities for themselves to grow. And of course, the entrepreneurs who would like to understand how investors are thinking and what they can take in order to pitch themselves even more successfully. So let's shortly run through 5 modules of the program. So the first one, we will touch their mindset. This is the place where everything begins. So we will talk about how do we need to think in order to spot the problem in the market. How can we find the best solution, the best scenario, and the tailor-made solution for that problem to solve. The second module is about the investment strategy. What strategies exist in the market, and which strategy suits me as a private or corporate investor in order to achieve my goals. As well, the startup evaluation process, very practice-based module, which will give you tools how to evaluate different opportunities in the market and select the ones which suits your target even better. The third module is very, very unique. Here we will have different speakers. On the screen, there are just a few of them, but there will be many, many more coming from the investment area or the corporate investment area. So we will learn from their mistakes and success stories in order to get tips and tricks how to be better for the next time. Module 4, of course, it's legal. With our content partners, Alex Valiūnas, we will talk about the legal aspects which are important to know in order to strive for the success before the deal, during, and after the deal is closed. And of course, innovations. Carlos Osorio is coming all the way from Chile in order to provide the best knowledge how to keep innovating, from the strategy to the processes and to the implementation. So that's shortly about the Academy, and now I would like to invite our lead one member, Justinas Pašys, because everyone who will take their part in that Academy will have a chance to become a member of lead one. So Justinas, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Diana, for a nice introduction. My name is Justinas Pašys. I'm the Managing Director of Litban. We are cooperating with our corporate members in the BMI and Baltic Sandbox to present this academy to you. But maybe a little bit about Litban. It sounds, I can see a few members, business angels here participating, but probably most of you haven't heard what it is, or maybe haven't heard the whole story. So Litban might sound something like Van Damme or Taliban, but it's actually a Lithuanian Business Angel Network. We are 183 Business Angels members strong. And we're looking, basically our members are looking for early stage startups to invest in. So when we have this strong base of business angels, there's a lot of startups applying and looking for investments. So our main goal of the organization is to grow the business angel activity and make it more popular in Lithuania, because it's still quite a new thing to do. Some of you have heard about the recent success stories, and we provide a gateway to that world, because yeah, if you're a VC partner, you get these startups approaching you, looking for investments. If you're a physical person and nobody knows that you would like to invest into a startup, you will not be approached. So we provide deal flow in terms of via monthly pitch events. There are over 600 startup applications per year. We select, pre-screen them for our members, and each month we provide 5 for them to look at, listen to, ask questions, and maybe invest out of the 5 to get investments. So that's a pretty good track record. The FYI, the average ticket sizes last year was around 20,000 euros per business angel per startup. And if this is up your alley, you can ask me more questions about Litban or about the Investment and Innovation Academy. I think that's it. So basically, thank you for inviting me here. So how should you innovate, basically? Should you buy the startup? Should you innovate within your corporation? Or should you just maybe start using service as a SaaS solution and go from there? The panel discussion is going to be about that. Back to you, Diana.
Thank you, Justinas. So if you have any interest, there are the contacts which you can approach us at BMI and cover all the questions or comments which you might have. And right now, as Justinas just nicely presented, we are moving to the panel discussion, the main part of this event. Sandra Goldbrich, CEO and co-founder of Baltic Sandbox. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Diana. Hi, Stanislav. Hi, Christian. Hi, Marius and Pavelas. I would like to invite you to the stage. So today we are going to have a very interesting discussion about what's happening on the markets of startups, on the markets of capital, and on the markets of corporate innovation. And maybe this discussion is going to be a little bit not that typical, because our target audience today are corporate innovators and corporate angel investors and people who are coming from the traditional businesses. And we have a great representation here with us today from the very early stage of startup development, which is actually us, me as a co-founder of Accelerator. We have Christian, who is a business angel and a part of the crowd investment platform. We have Stanislav, who is the next stage of the startup development, being Series C and Series A funds. We have, I'd say, the unpronounced unicorn, which is the next stage of the startup development that all the startups dream of. And we have family office, which we, by the way, rarely see at this stage. So I would like to start introducing our speakers, and Christian, probably you can start by introducing yourself. Christian?
Yes.
Great. Could you
Good.
please introduce
Yeah.
yourself?
Of course. Hello, everyone. Christian Rauda is my name. And I have been an entrepreneur a long time. Last 4 or 5 years, I have been a very active business angel in the region. Also the board member of local business angel network. And I joined Funderbeam this autumn as a chief growth officer. So in my portfolio, you can find 30 investments, direct or through the platform. And I also been leading, I think, 5, 6 investment rounds myself as a lead investor.
Thank you. And Stanislav, would you mind being the next?
Sure. Stanislav Ivanov, founding partner at Terra Ventures. I've been doing early stage tech investments for more than a decade. And Terra right now is a seed stage fund. We are looking at Nordics, Baltics, and some of the CE countries. Investing in the future global leaders.
Okay. And Marius, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello. So yeah, pleasure to be on the stage and to participate in this discussion. I am a partner at a family office, which is a multi-family office. That means that we cater currently 11 high net worth families in Lithuania. And I'm not sure how many of the participants know exactly what a family office does and is. So if not too many, if someone knows exactly, could you please raise your hand? A couple of hands, but not too many, so I will gladly explain a bit later probably, and I think it's good because now I'm sure that most of you will walk out from this meeting knowing something new. So thanks.
Yeah, and Pavelas.
Yeah, so I'm Pavlas Paderskis from Nord Security. I'm a Chief Operating Officer there, and I've been working nearly 9 months there, humbled by the amazing growth that's happening there, and humbled by the presence of great co-founders that created the companies, Thomas, Seimantas, Toma, and everyone else running the team. It's been an amazing opportunity to join them by, participating in the becoming of the unpronounced unicorn, maybe being pronounced sometime later in the near future, or maybe not. And this is, I think it's great that this event is happening and such events are happening because it really promotes and creates the network effects that we are looking for within the community, and so that's great.
Thank you. So thank you all the participants for the introduction. And we will start with the first question because who here in the audience ever dealt with startups, like invested in startups, who understands what is actually a startup and why they have so huge valuations? Oh, yes, indeed you do. So let's start from this question. Christian and Stas, probably like one after another you can explain, because I'm getting this question all the time from my friends who are working in like normal traditional businesses or big corporations, when they're saying like, look, this startup, they don't earn much money, and they're spending all the money they earn, and they're worth like 30 million. Like, why? Why is it happening? Like, normal people definitely can understand it. So in a nutshell, Christian, what is like early stage startup? What is this investment opportunity?
Yes, by investing into the early stage startup, you are investing into the future, not into the past. So because you don't have any past where you can make some kind of traditional KPIs like PE or PC ratios, you need to look into the founder's eyes and see that do you believe this guy or girl or not about their plans to really make the future in the way that is written in a business plan or pitch deck. But the valuations, it's already a hot topic why the valuations are so high with the startups. But truly thing is that I think in my way the simple answer is that if you will really make a fair valuation, and most of the time fair valuation is close to zero, then if you invest, doesn't matter which sum, you will take too much of their equity. So they don't have any more equity for the next following rounds, meaning that you as an investor is not the investor. Actually, you an investor become a majority shareholder, which mean most of the time that it's your company and you need to run it. That's, I think, the easiest explanation from my side.
Thank you. And Stas, so you're the venture fund that is investing in the startups with like 10 million, 15 million valuation and so on. So where are those valuations coming from? What exactly is evaluated there?
As Christian said, it's all about the future, right? So kind of ideally a startup, or at least the venture funds, are investing in those startups that in ideal world, if everything works out, then they become a unicorn, right? And then at some point they will be making billions in revenues and will become a profitable business if the technology or the innovation that they are trying to bring to life actually works. So calculating from that kind of backwards, you getting to kind of, because in order to build a big company, you need to actually raise a lot of money, and you can't raise a lot of money at once. You have to do it stage by stage. With each stage, you're proving more and more that this theoretical innovation in beginning actually looks more and more like a real profitable business. And so the more it looks like a real business, then it's more realistic to do this kind of risk reward calculation for the investor. And it's the valuation usually depends on the size of the round. So it's not so much of the kind of what the current performance, but it's about how much investor believes that those kind of those milestones that this particular team has achieved actually showing that they are on the right track, and how much investor then believes that he can take the risk and invest a certain amount of money. And as Christian said, the founding team, always should remain majority owner, because that should be their motivation. It's we're just giving money, but they are actually building this, so they have to leave this 24/7, and that's why their motivation should come from equity. And Yeah, so kind of the evaluation itself, it's the result of those of this mathematics. It's not kind of precise size based on whatever, how many kind of customers they have, or how many euros revenues they have, or even sometimes you can get those 15 million evaluations pre-revenue.
So it would be fair to say that when the companies are investing in innovation, they're not only bringing this innovation on boards and integrating them into the company, they're also growing their own capitalization, right, Pavelas? Because you are growing this very, very early stage startups inside of your company, right? So why do you do this?
Actually, coming a step back, I really do sympathize with this problem because this year a lot of Lithuanian startups were reporting their annual reports, and they have net profit losses reported in those reports. And a lot of people in the business community started asking questions like, you're losing money, so it must be tough right now. And you're like growing, hiring 150 people in 6 months, and it's nothing like tough on money or whatever. And I really saw how deep the divide is between what would be called the traditional business and traditional understanding of the business and the high growth business area. The key to translating and to communicating between this, I think, is trying to propose some common metrics, like when you are being asked about a net profit loss, right? You ask how would you understand, like, we're growing our revenue like 8 or 12% quarter versus quarter. And then the traditional business person asks, you mean year over year? No, quarter versus quarter. And the understanding starts to happen right then. And we are losing money in some sense because we're building the capacity to expand further, to access more markets, to gain more users, to increase their retention, to create all the various plethora of features for growth, which is what we're opting for. And when the growth is sustainable and can be sustained in some way that we can show for the outside investors, then it's something that's really valuable, and that's what we're opting for.
And we actually have a traditional investor with us. This person who is investing in something that is a real business, something that is tangible, not those startups with like cosmic evaluations. So, Marius, could you probably tell us how you see it from your point of view?
Yeah, I was waiting for my turn and wanted even slightly to contradict earlier my fellow participants of the discussion about the valuations. Of course, I come more from the world of listed securities, listed equities, so much later stage of companies that we help our clients to do investments in. And I would like to think I'm quite seasoned professional in that area. I know much less about the very early stage of companies, like very early stage startups or even private equity investments, somewhat, but much less. So for me, the question of valuation and especially for my clients, it's hugely important. And I would say, well, valuation could be a result of a company's efforts and company's results. So how successfully the founders of a company and the management of a company, how successfully they reach their milestones, how successfully they produce results, whatever they could be. They might not be able to show yet a profit line, but they might be showing sales growth or customer trends and so on. So that valuation could be a result of that. But there is another part of valuation that we shouldn't forget, and that's actually the market cycles or market situations. And currently we live in a market which we need to admit is in a glut of money. So everywhere there is just, well, plainly speaking, too much of money. And well, I would like to hear if anyone opposes that view, but my experience, my view from my book, I would say it's too much money everywhere, both in listed markets and I suppose also in unlisted or early stage companies markets. And what I see, well, something like of the recent deals like acquisition of Vault, valuations of 20 times sales, is it really a low valuation? Well, despite that it could be a wonderful company and despite that it could be still a very good business case, I find it very richly valued. So it's definitely not cheap in my eyes. So, well, but it's interesting if someone thinks it's a good bargain, then it would be interesting to hear as well.
Well, you know, to have like acquisitions like Walter or something, we have to have the corporations willing to innovate and willing to bring the innovations on board. And the thing is that when like corporate innovation managers are trying to do something like within the team, it takes them a lot of time and a lot of effort. They're starting some probably corporate acceleration which they never finish because they never have a clear goal or something. At the same time, some traditional industries are actually disrupted by the startups. If we're looking at like fintech, for example, we would be looking at the insurtech really soon. Same things will be happening, which means that traditional businesses, these giants with all those money, are actually losing the markets. So the question is, they have this, you know, last train, the train that is already leaving the station, and they can jump in this last wagon, you know, with either investing in all those startups or like acquiring those startups and incorporating them. And we don't see much of this in Baltics. And probably missing this in the ecosystem is also the case why angel investors don't invest a lot, because they don't see any exit opportunities here at the local markets if the company is not going to go global. So, Christian, what can we do from your point of view to involve the corporate innovators more in the process of acquiring startups, investing in startups, working with startups?
That's a good question. And I think when addressing this question, we also need to think what kind of startups or companies or corporates are interested of. Because in the different stages, we see different values. As very early, maybe there is only team, what is valuable, and the time spent on the product service. Later stages, there can be also revenue, a real product, and so on. But actually, in overall, I don't think the picture is so black and white. I have seen pretty many deals, also in my portfolio, but also in Estonia, for example, where I see that advisor or early investor as angel, or sometimes also a corporate top-level employee is involved in very early startup. I have seen, for example, a lot in insurance industry, for example. And I think that's already a good start for the trend that we see in the future as well, that more corporate senior level guys coming to the board of coming to the, you know, as an advisor, as a ad hoc team member, early investor into the startups where they are tackling the challenges and problems what these industry corporates are actually having.
And Stas, so do you see, I mean, you are investing a lot in the startups that are actually taking the share of the corporations in the market, being like insurtech, being B2B SaaS and things like this, and fintech, by the way. So have you like seen any examples of some good collaboration between the corporation and the startup where both actually benefit, for example, from your portfolio? And how did this collaboration start? I mean, what was the incentive from the corporation side, if it was there?
I think in the Baltics, nothing comes from top of my mind, like some Baltic corporate would cooperate, but But on one side, it's just this corporate innovation is so new subject in Baltics for Baltic companies. One thing is that our kind of regionally large companies, they are recently young, so and they are relatively not very big. And they experienced actually some like 15 years ago, they still experienced quite rapid period of rapid growth as economy were transitioning. But they are arriving at this market's pretty saturated with whatever market area with whatever product. So they need to actually start thinking about what's actually happening. They need to look outside of their, even if their home market, they need to see what's happening in the region. And I actually see that those initiatives are now picked up also in Baltics by Baltic companies, that they are trying to get access to startups and to just at least to be informed, not basically as an investment target maybe, but to be at least informed what's happening. So if there is a disruption coming, so they are not surprised, but can at least do something about it maybe, potentially. But local corporations that definitely, well, they are not the exit targets for best startups or for the kind of most startups here. But not all startups are actually, after raising angel round or seed round, are able to break through internationally. And that's actually where those can find a home, let's say, in as a part of corporation that is big only here regionally. And if this is, I've seen some examples of kind of close cooperation. It's in the energy sector, in the telecom sector, even in the construction sector. That's kind of industries where we do have kind of relatively large companies here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I like this way. That's thing about surprised. If by surprised you mean knock that completely into yours, then probably sometimes it comes as a surprise to the corporations. But it doesn't come as a surprise to Povilas. I mean, because you work with those, you spend money, you invest in the early stage startups, right? So what's the incentive? Why do you do this?
Yeah, I think first of all we need to look at why and how at all business happens and startups happen. We innovate and we create some great products that we first of all do a product market fitting and try to understand what works, what doesn't, and by doing so, by creating the business itself, we grow our competences. And these competences, well grown, the best thing you can do is invest in that product and that search for the product market fit, to focus yourself on that initiative and grow it there, because it eventually it becomes something you know best. You invested the most time in it, you know the market, you know what's needed, you know how to pivot if there needs to be a pivot or whatever that happens. And so up to some point, the best investment you can do, at least in the history of Nord Security, was in the product itself. Later on, I think what happens is that you grow out of the brand is too saturated, or the market is fulfilled by your product. You need to seek for other propositions, value propositions, other positioning, other marketing angles, or so something like that. So you can create either similar products, or you can use the core competences that you harvested. Like for example, we have the best marketing in Lithuania, I can easily say that, and we run it globally, and we if we invest somewhere, it is mostly because we can benefit with our competences of marketing the company that we're investing in. Therefore, the benefit of us investing into ourselves can be transferred into another company. But first of all, you need to focus on yourself and building what's important for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. In talking about investments, here we're coming back to family office with this question. So basically, growing competences inside of like this corporation. Would it be like you have this families as customers, and I'm pretty much sure that some of those families are coming from the corporates and so on. So would they consider it to be the wise investments to grow those startups inside of the companies? Would it be that they would consider the opportunity of investing in startups that are related to their businesses as some sort of like talent harvesting at one point and like valuation growing at the other points, way of developing the company? Or is it like too far away from them still?
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. Some of our customers or families that we work with, they come after successful careers at C-level in the very big companies, sometimes international companies. But as I promised to say a few words, what a typical family office does to understand, so that there is no secret about that, although the knowledge about family offices somehow tends to be a bit secretive. I don't know if that adds value, but well, you do not hear very much about the family offices in the public space. So otherwise, it's no big secret actually. Well, when someone needs a family office, it is at the point when a successful businessman or sometimes a manager, C-level manager who has done a brilliant career, or sometimes it could be also exceptional professional, like maybe someone here in the audience is also a very good IT professional who has a huge career, very successful negotiations with their employers, and has a very good bonus or option packages, and one day will become multimillionaire. So both people who have gathered substantial wealth, they need, or they might have a need for a family office. And that's how our clients arrive. So most of them are people who have created successful businesses and possibly already exited them or are in the process of partially exiting them. And it's a very good point what Pavel has touched about diversification, or should a diversification be done and how it should be done, because I would say the normal way, the best practice how it is done is that in case you have exited from one business in certain area, you don't always want to keep investing that wealth that you generated through exit by investing only in the same area. Because at some point when you have really substantial wealth, you want to preserve it. And that means that you want to diversify it. And despite that you have a very good knowledge and competence in certain area, be it IT or some other, I don't know, biotech or some other cool area where the competence is very valuable, you might want to build a portfolio of early stage companies and maybe not so early stage companies which have very broad areas of business, so that you do not put all the eggs in one basket, and that's simple as that. So yeah, my comment probably rounds up with that. So.
Yeah, but most of the traditional investors and the corporate investors, being like personal angels or like CVCs, they consider the investments in the startups, especially early stage startups, to be very risky, even in the long-term perspective. Is it some sort of a myth? And I mean, like in the 10-year perspective, if you're investing in 100 startups, you might probably get some substantial returns. Or it doesn't make sense at all, and we all go invest in like coffee shops and traditional businesses.
Yeah, I can just briefly comment. There is international practice which has much more history. And there is a local Lithuanian or Baltic practice, I would say, which is only very much emerging. So I forgot to tell that family offices is not really a common animal in our spaces in the Baltics. So like in Lithuania, there is just a handful truly official family offices and another handful of sort of unofficial family offices. So it's really a small number, and the history of how they function is very, very recent, I would say. So I would first stick to the international practice. And well, I was just looking at the very, very fresh report about the family offices worldwide just before our discussion here, checking what are the latest changes for the year. And if you look how the international practice goes about investing or allocating wealth or big assets of wealthy families across different asset classes, then it's actually a lot about diversification. And typically it's around 30% invested in equities, both listed and unlisted. Then maybe just about 15% invested in real estate, then about same amount into alternative investments, and some in fixed income, cash, gold, crypto, and things like that. Well, it's quite different story if we look at the Lithuania, and I suppose it might be similar for the other Baltic countries as well. Many rich families here invest overly into real estate. Like I would say it's pretty usual to meet a family which has 70–80% of their wealth invested one way or another into real estate. And that probably explains that it's much less left for investments into equities, both listed and unlisted. On the other hand, I need to say that the families that I work with, like those that we cater in our family office, it's just a sample of 11, so it's not a huge one. But out of those 11, we have at least a few that invest in early stage companies. And it's still not majority, definitely. So yeah, that's more or less the picture.
Well, we also have Estonian picture, and I mean, like 7 unicorns, like less than 1.5 million population. So basically, I think Estonian angels know a little bit more on how to invest, you know, in some pretty much risky early stage things, and then gain your X100 return, X1000 return. So, Christian and Stas, could you probably share a little bit of like your experience and how it's happening in your country? Because when we were talking to like corporates and business angels, in Lithuania we even have this term, real estate business angel, and we all know what it means. So how is it happening in, how did these unicorns and all those exits and all those money in the ecosystem transform the investment mindset of like traditional business angels, corporate business angels, and did it transform it? Christian?
The short answer is yes, it did. Otherwise, we are not in the place where we are today. The latest report from Sifted actually is telling that Estonia have the most VC investment per capita in the whole Europe. But coming back to the early stage, and I mean, how to do investing in early stage, and I'm talking early stage as pre-seed and seed, which is my area, focus area, is that the general rule of thumb is that don't put more than 10% of your net assets into an early stage, because this is a risky asset class. And the second general rule is that, you know, have a portfolio of 30 right chosen companies. So if you do a simple mathematic with average ticket size of 10 to 50K per investment, you can see that you need to be a millionaire to do angel investing. And that's not the case, actually, for most of angels. So that is also one of the reasons, for example, why Funderbeam is live, is that it will allow also the retail investors to invest in a little bit, you know, less money into the startup equity. But anyway, coming back to the question, is that I think it's so important when the first success stories comes out, and we also see the first success stories in Lithuania and Latvia, is that the founders, the employees, the early employees, is actually staying in the ecosystem and contributing back. Founding another startups, being the advisor or on the boards with another newly born startups, starting the accelerators, incubators, and so on. So I think that the ecosystem as the community, the whole community, is the key actually how to really make these things happen. And of course, you need to have a ton of luck along the way.
And Sas, do you feel the pressure, the competition from those, let's say, corporate investors or something who all started heavily investing in startups after all those unicorns, or the market is still probably the same as it was like 3 to 5 years ago?
Well, yeah, it depends on the baseline, right? If we compare to like 10 years ago, then well, there was zero competition. To kind of 3-5 years ago, it was less competition. These days, I think Estonia is even Estonian VC market or kind of early stage market, capital market is more competitive than Swedish market. That is it, but it's not about corporate. It's actually the success of and this repeated success of Estonian ecosystem now brings a lot of foreign investors directly looking for early stage opportunities. Because, like for example, like Swedish VCs, they missed all kind of first kind of unicorns here, and they were asking like, how come like you never came to us for money, you never offered to us companies. Said, like the great companies, they are flying over you. They are going directly from Estonia to London or even US and raise money there. Why should we go to Stockholm for the money? So they learned the lesson. And last 2 years, we see that actually even Nordic and other European investors who kind of usually were later stage investors are coming to this region and looking for really early opportunities, because they understand that the ecosystem effect that Christian was just talking about is real. And kind of when like 10 years or 8 years ago, when you see kind of good early stage startup like PitchTech, you see the team that you have at least a couple of people or one from Skype on the team. Then it became like you see, okay, someone from Skype and someone from TransferWise. Now you see PitchTechs where it's like, okay, ex-Bolt, ex-TransferWise, ex-Pipedrive, and kind of, so those, it's like a snowball effect.
Yeah, and coming back to the corporate innovation. By the way, after 2 rounds of questions, we're going to wrap up here, and we'll have time for Q&A. So everyone who is sitting here in the audience and everyone who's joining us online, please prepare your questions. We would be happy to answer them. Coming back to our innovation topic. So what do we do? I mean, innovation thinking is really, really different from the traditional business thinking, right? So what do we do to teach the corporate innovators, to teach the people in the corporation to think as venture investors, to look for the future opportunities, and to think as innovators? Pavelis, well, you were born like this, but if you weren't,
I don't think I was born like this, but I think it's a really hard topic for us in Lithuania, because despite all the the gap between traditional and the growth businesses, we also have a huge intolerance for mistakes overall in our society, and that's something that is adding up to the negative side of this conversation, and why it's not happening. Because when you create innovations, you definitely find a lot of ways in how things are not working. so you make mistakes, right? And or controlled mistakes, or however you want to call them. But those experiments, they don't see the brighter daylight because you change them, you pivot, you look for other product market fits, and we have special metrics for that. And when discussing these topics with corporates, I think the Lithuanian corporate landscape is not quite ready yet for that. And how to facilitate this discussion, how to engage it, I think the ball is on the side of the corporate part of the board, because they need to find the reasoning and the rationale for getting things done in a more agile way, in a faster way, in a way that will make them grow globally, access new markets, and so on. Usually what they're looking for is, incremental benefits, changing, tweaking the EBITDA for the marginal gains, and then that's that. So you cannot do anything.
Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Yeah, I may just add very briefly. I think, yeah, the answer is not easy, but I believe it lies in education. And there is no other way. I think our corporates have a long way to go, but they have to educate themselves. Corporate managers have to educate themselves, have to find ways to agree with their shareholders about having some space to use some new methods. And in a way, what I wanted to suggest is that corporate managers could probably learn something from the likes of our clients, the clients of family office, for instance, because in a way, sometimes our clients act as some big corporates because they try to build a portfolio of investments and different sorts of investments. And they use different techniques, and there is always a battle between focus versus diversification ideology. So, and there are ways how to solve it. You can use some barbell methods, how you build up your portfolio. For instance, you put just a fraction of your total wealth, of your total assets, into some very safe activities or safe assets, while you allow yourself to move and experiment much more with the rest. Or otherwise, you can put the bulk of it into the safer assets while allowing a small proportion that you play around even more aggressively with. And you can find that fine balance, and it's very individual. And it's individual both for each family and it's individual for each corporate. But at least they need to start thinking about that. So, and well, probably only education, in my mind, comes up that could spark that.
You touched a really interesting topic. So that was a question I was going to ask. So Christian, what corporate innovators, so to say, and people in C-level management can learn from the business angels?
That's a good question. I think business angels as a way of thinking is to see the current and the future and the execution in between. So business angels normally go into the companies where there's very little revenue or no revenue at all. And I think this is the skill what is hard to learn from the schools, from the programs. You just need to do it, and by doing it, you will learn it, and you will get your gut feeling. And I think the second thing what they should learn is that in the startup field and early stage and angel investing field, there is one rule: grow fast or die slow. And I think the corporates already understand that if they don't grow and if they don't be more aggressive in terms of innovation and growing, then they have at the moment very small competitors called startups in these fields. but fast forward 3 to 5 to 10 years, they can have a very slow dying if they don't act today.
Yeah, so die slow part. Remember the die slow part. Stas, what corporates can learn from the venture funds? Because you're not quite business angels, you're a bit more mature. So, like, if a corporate would think like a venture funds, how would the corporation change?
Well, some of them, I mean, the ones that we are working with, who has kind of proper kind of venture initiative, it's a sneak peek into the future, right? So, as Christian said, that like in venture, you always think about the world that it will be, right? And I think what could corporation take over or learn? I think it's more kind of holistic approach, looking not only from because like on daily basis, if we are talking about corporation, that they're in a certain niche in certain market, so they fully submerged in what's happening there. And but venture fund is you're always on this helicopter view. You're always looking at the global market, global trends, global technologies, and talent. So that's, I think, would be kind of for the also for the C-level or the corporate, that the kind of the beneficial kind of way of thinking from time to time to jump to this level and to understand what's happening. So that will help them to navigate their own kind of day-to-day operations on market where they are active. And but the one thing is here is that it's not that easy for corporate to jump into this world, because I mean, why would startup go and talk to corporate, right? I mean, maybe as a customer, but other than that, like to accept investment from corporate who doesn't even maybe understand the way they work, et cetera, et cetera. So access to deal flow for the corporates is the key here. And if they just do it randomly, I'm afraid that's not very kind of successful strategy. So they need partners. And I think that the right way for corporates is actually to partner with incubators, with accelerators, so they can be alongside them, learn without really overcommitting in millions and millions in investments and then doing those costly mistakes. Learn along the side and benefit from this kind of getting access to this helicopter view to the innovation.
Yeah, and Pavelas, what corporates can learn from you, for example? So imagine you are giving this, I don't know, lecture to some representatives of very, very traditional industry. So what would you tell them?
In some way, I always think that we are learning some from the corporate side, because we're doing processes now and all that corporate stuff. I myself am a C-level executive somewhat, so I don't know. Yeah, we're everyone goes the same direction, like the IPO or whatever. But I think it's something, well, in the early stages, still about the culture of how you're going to approach business decisions. So there's a story that I witnessed is a manager has I don't know, an OKR that is that he reached at the value of 100, let's say, for this quarter, and he's going to the management to approve his next target, and he naturally expects that 150 will suffice, but then the management says no, like 400, and he doesn't know how to do that, because with stuff that and the methods and the processes that he used, he will not achieve it. So he needs to like redo everything he did, think of new ways of doing it, and implementing new technologies, asking people around how to get there. And this is something where, you know, in this process, one or another way, an innovation is being born and you reach the target, because that is exactly what happened. I mean, 390 or whatever, but still, it came to that. And the goals are reached that way by changing the mindset, by being bold, aggressive, and very demanding of the growth that is very precious in our market.
Yeah, so you either reach the target or you're fired, right?
Not
So
exactly, but yeah.
Market of startups, which is actually aggressive, which is actually built and taken over the world. Because if we were looking at, for example, traditional companies that are over there on the market for the decades and sometimes centuries, they had their own path of development, and they grew and they grew, and they at some point became these giants. And then companies that no one knew, I mean, like some small companies like Google, like Microsoft, and all of this stuff just popped up out of the middle of nowhere, and then they are, wow, they are the biggest companies in the world. So that's the pace on which change is happening. And probably when the corporates think, okay, we still have probably 5 more years until startups are going to it as alive, probably you don't have 5 years anymore, probably you just have 3. So the time to do something is now. And now we have some time for the Q&A session, so probably the question about what to do. And we can share the mic with our audience if anyone from the audience has questions. I'm going to start the mic. Oh, sorry, you're not speaking anymore today. Yeah. Any questions? Like raise your hands and you'll be given a microphone.
It's interesting. Can you tell a few examples of measurement, how you measure startups, you or some examples in the market? It's definitely not about EBITDA, so it's what about? What is about?
Probably Christian can start, like the very early stage. How do you evaluate, measure startups? What are the metrics?
Yeah, I would see what's the hate of the founder. No kidding. But anyway, I mean, evaluation of startups in a very early stage is art, not a science. You must look what they have, what kind of team competence they have, what the track record of they have in a professional career, how long they have worked together. You must see also the market where they are operating, what's the total addressable market, obtainable market, competitors as well. You can have comparables, which is a good measurement tool, what you measure against. You can see what is out in the market, you can compare the deals. And you can also do reverse engineering, and that was also what Stas was briefly mentioned before, is that you know that, okay, you need to achieve these business goals before the next round. And next round normally is 12 to 18 months, plus minus. And you need X amount of money to achieve these goals. Meaning that if you will give away 10 to 20% of your company to the early stage investor base, then you can pretty simply calculate what's your evaluation. And then you will start to negotiate if it's needed.
And SAS then comes you at the later stage when startups already can show you some numbers. So what are the numbers you're looking at?
Yes, if I understand the question correctly, then, so what are the KPIs that we're tracking when startup already operation? So you're basically tracking, you can divide it in like 3, I think, areas. One is talent, so it's talent acquisition. Like for the next year, you understand, in order to them to get to the next stage of development, they need to attract or do certain hires. Are they able to attract A people? like the absolute top people or not. So we're tracking how they're progressing with hiring. The second one is the product or technology. And then it's obviously, again, in order to get to the next stage, they have to move from this prototype to beta version, and then from beta version to this, I don't know, pre-production, whatever, and then so pilot customers, etc. So how they are progressing on that. And then the third is obviously sales, and there is a difference if it's B2B or B2C. If B2B, it's a little bit easier, then you have a pipeline, and we basically track, okay, we have how many names are in the pipeline, how many, what are the progress been made for the last months with those names? Are they moving along towards the this proof of concept, and then are they in negotiation and closing the deals, etc., etc. And if we're talking about B2C, then it's users, right? So new users. Then obviously very important retention, how many new users, are users sticking, are they using the product, are they churning, are they willing to pay if it's a freemium model, etc., etc. So it becomes a granular, but in the essence, yeah, it's company at the beginning of when you give them money investment, they are here in terms of company size, product, technology, and the sales or the market penetration, and you want them to get to the next stage in all those categories. And basically, you can map all those like 12 months, how much per month they have to progress on each of them, and then you track the progress and trying to kind of find also all the help possible to help them to get there.
Well, in our case, we don't evaluate startups. I'd say we assess startups because it's early for the evaluation. And what we do this assessment with basically 3 whys. Why this team, why here, and why now? Because that's some sort of the combination of success. And when you're looking at the team, I mean, on the one hand, there is no, like, you can't know everything about each team, and you can be sure in each person you're assessing at the moment. But there are some signs that actually can be read that this team is able to execute what they're trying to execute. Normally, this team has experience in the industry. Normally, this team has previous business experience or startup experience, no matter if they failed with the previous startup. Normally, this team would consist of several founders who have very different fields of competences, who work together and have some cohesiveness in the team. And normally, the team that is like moving towards the success is personally invested a lot in the product that they're doing. So this is how we get our like why this team answer. And then why here, it means both geography for us and industry. So why something should be happening in this specific industry, what this industry is asking for. Why it should be happening in this specific industry in UK, for example, or Sweden. So what's in general happening on the markets. But this question doesn't exist without the question, why now? And this is how we see the market opportunity. So for example, like 5 years ago, if there was like a deep tech startup doing something very complicated with data sets, and they would come to us and ask for money, we would be, well, probably you would need a lot of like money and a lot of competences and things like this to do this. And now we see how this market is growing. Now we see how the market of predictive predictive analytics startups is growing. And we see, okay, so the market entrance became pretty much easy and much cheaper. So the market is there now, and the opportunity is there now. So if we have a very competent team, it means we can invest and like try our chances. How do you assess this idea, very early stage teams?
Well, I think all of you, the main points are there. I think you can generally summarize that it's more of a job interview than an Excel sheet assessment, but in the early stage. But when it matures, then yeah, the typical revenue, lifetime value, customer acquisition costs, and all the different things. When you have a product that somehow sells, then you just try to understand the product metrics and what are there, and the product metrics are the same from telecommunications or IT or whatever.
Marius, if there's stage opportunities coming to you, your way. So
Yeah, well, I have some difficulty to add much here, but maybe I could just bring some experiences from the practice that some of our clients, as I mentioned, they do invest not only into listed equities, but also in unlisted and even early stage companies. Well, I need to be frank, some of our clients do not tell us that they do some investments, so they don't have to involve their family office in each and every transaction. Some do like to tell us or even involve us in the process. The others keep it to themselves and think they know it best. So I can't tell much about them, but those who share, well, I think you mentioned a lot of things that I'm hearing from my clients in such cases, but one more to add is probably sometimes that they try to look if the company has the chances of becoming, in an extreme case, becoming a monopoly player, or more likely a dominant player in that niche, in that market. So do they have what it takes to become a dominant player in that market segment or niche or whatever? And if they get convinced that there is a significant chance that this company, this team, this method, they do have chances, then it could be a go. If they are not convinced, if they are more convinced that it will be just another player with another commodity type of product or service, and it's probably leaning to no.
okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Yeah, thank you. The question would be: we're speaking in the panel of the best ways to innovate, right? Do it yourself. Well, we do understand it's tightly connected to owning enough of human capital in order to innovate inside, have an R&D. So, if we choose to buy out, my question is: the company is deploying some capital, right? It sits there waiting for something to be bought. So, what would be your advice? What are the key rules to stick to? What are the main mistakes that may be done? And maybe the third part of this question would be, how long should we wait until some result happens? Because I've seen results where some capital is deployed, someone is playing for 2-3 years, it doesn't work. Okay, let's close it down. So what are the rules in order for it to be successful?
So you're talking about the M&As, right? So when company is actually like this happy word for every investor, M&A, when finally you're close to your exits, sometimes it's just too early, you know. So Christian, if you see like the company, the corporate that is looking for some M&A opportunities, and they probably don't even know what they're looking for, how do they act? Should they try to, you know, to incorporate something inside by purchasing them? Or should they try to grow this innovation, this startup from the inside and invest probably the same amount of money over like several years in it?
That's a good question. I think it's depending on the acquirer investment kind of hypothesis, why they want to buy the company. Is it because just a strategical investment that they see that, I mean, 1 + 1 = 3 or more? Is it just a cash flow investment, which is normally not the case, or something other? But I think if we're talking about innovation, then the most important recommendation is that don't forget that the founders and the founding team founded a company because they wanted to innovate. They wanted to do something new. And if they will have a new kind of a landlord who is starting to tell them too much about what to do and how to do, then this can be an easy way how you kill innovation, a small team, what you just acquired.
So basically the sad example of Google, when they're just buying those startups in the packages and the boxes, and then like in 1 month or 1 year they just close the project, and then they just, you know, either those people, those startup founders are staying in Google as employees, or they're just living Google with some pile of cash, sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller, and that's it. And basically there is no further development of the project happening, or just something. Stas, for you, how would you, if you're looking, for example, at the banking industry or something, and there are a lot of threats for the banking from fintech startups who are actually taking their customers and so on. So if the bank would be willing to be stronger and to be willing to, you know, bring some innovations on board, at least a little bit of innovations, so that would be good. That's what I can say as a bank customer. So what do they do? Do they purchase the startup and try to, you know, integrate, try to merge, or do they try to grow the startup from the inside and to be like more innovative from the inside?
I think it's all about culture. So it's very hard to change the DNA or the culture of the company if the particular incumbent doesn't have the innovation culture inside. It's like if just by acquiring startup, you're not going to change the DNA of the company. So obviously, if it's, I don't know, 5,000 people company acquiring 200 people company, then, well, you pretty much understand what culture will win, right? And I think that's the worst case scenario. If the corporate buys a startup and trying to integrate the kind of organizations or teams or try to kind of merge them, that usually, well, doesn't work. The best way, I think, is you can integrate products. You can because when startup is separate, they are building for the whole market, for everyone. But if the corporate buys this startup, then they can give an input. So the same team will keep innovating, but will innovate only for the specific market, for the specific customer segment. Therefore, will help this specific corporate to compete with their existing other competitors, right? So I believe that the product integration is possible, but the culture integration is, well, so far I haven't seen much successful cases.
Thank you. And Pavelos, how do you, how do you know that people who you're hiring have this part of the innovation culture inside of them, has this like innovation DNA? And how, because you're now maturing from basically being a startup for a pretty long time into being some sort of the corporation. You're going towards the direction of corporation. You're learning a lot about them. So how do you preserve this startup DNA in you?
Well, it's a really hard thing to do. I mean, it's last 6 months we are onboarded 150 people in Nord Security, and that was, I mean, I started in a different company than I am now, because there are a lot of new people coming in, and but there are no like golden rules or silver bullets to solve this, because it's really just hard work by trying to attract the right talent that is culturally fit, and in the market where there is virtually no talent at all left, it's not it's very hard to not lower the bar, like, okay, you're not quite with us, but come on, and that's a hard thing to do. And also when onboarding the person who will be working with you towards the products and the innovations, you need to focus a lot on the values, on the things of how does it work here, and usually well, people come with their own opinions and ideas of how to do work, and that's all great sometimes. But we tend to tell that if you don't do anything at all in the first month of your career here, that's okay. That's you keep listening, keep onboarding yourself, keep figuring out the details. How does it work? How we are doing decisions here, and that's something a bit unique for us. And I would like to get back to the Andrew's question. In Tesonet, I think we do something as a founder-investor fit. We do product market fit, but we have a lot of competences that are built on our product. And when we choose an investment opportunity, we see how our best competences would benefit the company that struggles with those specific areas that we are best in. And then magic happens, and then you can create a mutually beneficial connection.
That's an interesting approach. And Marius, to wrap it up, the probably last question to you. So if your family customers are coming to you with this request that we want to become the part of innovation, we want to, step on this way and continue in this way. So what would be your advice to them?
Well, it's a good question, and I think the answer lies in how we define investing in innovation, first of all. Because when I was coming to this discussion, I was just thinking in my head, our customers or families that we work with, they do invest in innovation in various ways. And there are various ways and levels how you can invest in innovation. For instance, you can invest in listed equities, and you probably still invest in innovation, because like in case you invest in, I don't know, well, Tesla or some CRISPR technologies, or I don't know, Teladoc or companies like that, are you investing in innovation or not? Well, I would argue that you are investing, despite that you are investing in late stage companies. But of course, I would encourage, and I'm in pro-diversification camp, and I always sort of discuss with the families that if they want to preserve wealth, they need to think seriously what is the level of diversification that is suitable for their case, for their goals, and so on. And many times part of that strategy would be also investing into early stage companies along with later stage companies, and both could be innovative. And also, early stage companies could be maybe less innovative sometimes. Well, it's very hard to think of a good example how a startup is totally uninnovative, but...
Oh, I've seen some, believe me.
Okay, well, probably I haven't seen so many, but yeah, but in my mind, most of the startups would have some level of innovation, but not necessarily technology innovation. They might be innovating in processes, like things like that. Yeah, I would advocate our clients, our families that we cater, to look very broadly, to look into all possibilities, and to study new ways and new layers, new opportunities, how they can diversify and efficiently preserve their wealth.
Thank you. Thank you, dear speakers. Thank you, Stas and Christian, for joining us today. It's like Denmark and Estonia.
Thank you.
I hope you have some better weather now than we have here. Thank you, Marius and Pavelas, and thank you, dear audience.
Thank you.